palace was silent until the screams began. Behind walls lined with gold and silk, a queen lay writhing in agony. Candles flickered. Physicians whispered frantically. Courtiers shifted nervously as the air filled with the smell of blood. This was no royal banquet. It was a battlefield hidden inside a birthing chamber. You might imagine queens as powerful, untouchable, wrapped in luxury. But for centuries, their true role was not to rule, but to reproduce. They were judged not by their wisdom or strength, but by the number of children they could bring into the world, no matter the cost. And the cost was terrifying. Mumtaz Mahal, beloved wife of Shah Jahan, endured 14 pregnancies in 19 years. The last one killed her. Her devastated husband built the Taj Mahal, admired as a monument of love. But it is also a marble tomb for a woman destroyed by childbirth. Maria Theresa of Austria carried 16 children. She ruled an empire, but in letters she confessed, "I feel more a prisoner of my body than ruler of my empire." Each child became a political pawn, traded in marriage to hold Europe together. Queen Charlotte of Britain endured 15 confinements. To the world she was serene, a model of motherhood. Yet in her letters she revealed her terror that her daughters would inherit her fate, trapped in endless pregnancies. And Queen Anne of England, 17 pregnancies, 17 coffins. Not a single heir survived to adulthood. When her last cradle fell silent, the Stuart dynasty collapsed. These women lived in an age when childbirth killed as often as war. No anesthesia, no antibiotics. Every delivery was a gamble with death. Yet queens were expected to endure it again and again until their bodies broke. Some became legends of fertility. Others were branded as cursed. Some were said to be blessed by heaven. Others whispered to be witches. But beneath every rumor lies the same haunting reality. These queens were prisoners of their wombs. And so we must ask, were they truly remembered as queens or merely as wombs for the crown? In early modern Europe, a queen's body was not her own. It was a national asset. Kings could lead armies and sign treaties, but without heirs, their dynasties crumbled. And so the survival of kingdoms depended not on battlefields or diplomacy, but on the fragile lives born in royal nurseries. Every queen was expected to produce not just one heir, but many. Because children died often, plagues swept through palaces as easily as villages. A fever could steal a prince in days. A fall from a horse could end a dynasty in a moment. One son was never enough. A royal mother needed a dozen children to secure a line. That pressure was immense. At Versailles, whispers did not concern taxes or laws. They circled around the queen's waistline. Is she pregnant? Will it be a boy? Every public appearance was a spectacle of speculation. And if her belly stayed flat too long, rumors of curses, affairs, or divine punishment spread like wildfire. Childbirth itself was brutal. No anesthesia, no sterile instruments. A queen screamed in agony, often in front of witnesses. In France, royal births were public events, doors flung open so nobles and ambassadors could watch, ensuring no switch of infants. Imagine it, a woman fighting for her life, bleeding, while dozens of eyes scrutinized her every gasp. And yet, privacy was a luxury she could never claim. Her pain was not her own. It was a matter of state. Religion turned the womb into theater. Catholic priests preached that fertility was God's blessing. Protestant preachers said miscarriages were signs of divine wrath. Catherine de Medici, mocked as Barren for 10 years, was called a witch until she bore 10 children. Anne of Austria, after years without a child, was branded unlucky until she produced the Sun King, Louis XIV. Medical knowledge was pitiful. Doctors recommended bizarre remedies, bleeding, purges, tonics made of herbs, even charms and astrology. Queens drank potions, prayed to relics, and consulted astrologers just to conceive. Failure meant humiliation, and success was no guarantee of safety. A queen could deliver one healthy child, only to die in her next labor. Maternal mortality rates were staggering. Historians estimate that 1 in 8 women died from childbirth complications. And these were queens, the most privileged women alive. Now imagine what that meant for women like Mumtaz Mahal, who endured 14 pregnancies, or Queen Charlotte, who carried 15. By probability alone, they should not have survived. Their survival was seen as miracle or curse. The palace nursery itself was a cruel place. Rows of cradles, some filled, many empty. In Queen Anne's palace, 17 cradles stood ready. 17 coffins followed. To courtiers, her misfortune was proof that God had abandoned the Stuarts. To Anne, it was simply heartbreak repeated again and again. For Isabella of Castile, motherhood and war blurred together. She birthed 7 children while commanding armies. Chroniclers said Spain itself seemed to pause with each of her labors, as if the fate of the nation was tied to her contractions. This was the reality of queenship. Your throne depended not on your mind, but on your womb. And the court never let you forget it. Even portraits tell the story. We see serene faces, jewels, and crowns. But the truth is hidden beneath silk gowns, scars of repeated labor, bodies ravaged by miscarriages, breasts sore from nursing, bellies stretched from pregnancies that never ended. Queens were remembered as symbols of majesty, but in their lifetimes, they were measured in blood. And it is in this world of rumor, religion, and relentless pressure that our 8 queens lived, suffered, and were transformed into legends of both fertility and tragedy. History books list names, dates, and numbers, but the palaces whispered darker stories, legends, and rumors that shaped how these queens were remembered. Mumtaz Mahal is celebrated worldwide as the woman for whom the Taj Mahal was built, but behind the marble romance lay whispers of despair. Court servants said that with each pregnancy, her beauty withered, her body broken by exhaustion. By her 14th labor, she was so weak that some claimed Shah Jahan wept before the child was even born, knowing it would be her last. The Taj Mahal, some murmured, was not a monument of love, but a tombstone for a womb that never rested. Maria Theresa of Austria was hailed as the mother of Europe. 16 children linked her empire to half the continent. Yet rivals sneered that she was less an empress than a breeder, trading flesh and blood like chess pieces. Satirical pamphlets in rival courts painted her not as a ruler, but as a monstrous hen, surrounded by squawking chicks labeled with the names of foreign princes. To her enemies, her political genius was reduced to biology. Queen Charlotte of Britain was portrayed in portraits as calm, regal, and endlessly maternal. But inside the palace, rumors spread that she deliberately delayed her daughters' marriages. Why? Because she feared they would be destroyed by marriage and childbirth, just as she had been. Whispered tales painted her as a prison warden, protecting her daughters from the fate of endless pregnancies, but also robbing them of freedom. Which was true? Overprotective love or cruel control? Queen Anne of England became the very embodiment of a curse. 17 pregnancies, 17 losses. Gossip spread that the Stuarts had lost God's favor. Some preachers even declared that her empty womb was divine judgment, that the dynasty itself was doomed. Servants whispered that every time a cradle was prepared in the palace, it was already haunted by the shadow of a coffin. Whether or not one believed in curses, the fact remained. Anne's personal tragedy reshaped the monarchy, ending her bloodline forever. Maria Carolina of Naples endured 17 births, but buried 10 of her children. Palace maids told eerie stories. After each funeral, they heard phantom cries echoing in the nursery at night, as if her lost infants lingered in the halls. Grief-stricken yet unbroken, Carolina was seen as both cursed and saintly, a woman condemned to endless mourning, yet revered for her endurance. Catherine de Medici of France was the most infamous. For 10 years she was childless, mocked as barren, whispered to be a witch. When she suddenly bore 10 children, the whispers turned darker. People said she had turned to sorcery, mixing astrology with forbidden rituals. Some even claimed Nostradamus himself blessed her womb. The line between superstition and survival blurred, and Catherine became both queen and sorceress in the popular imagination. Isabella of Castile was remembered as the warrior queen who united Spain and sent Columbus to the New World. Yet soldiers told a stranger tale, that during her labors, entire campaigns froze, as if Spain itself held its breath until the outcome was known. To her supporters, her fertility was a divine sign. To her enemies, it was an omen of doom, a cradle rocking the fate of empires. Maria Feodorovna of Russia astonished all. 10 births, 10 survivors. In an age when even royal nurseries were filled with tiny coffins, this was unheard of. To some, it proved her womb was blessed by God. To others, it was unnatural, even frightening. The court whispered she had a womb of iron, not flesh, but steel, forged by divine protection. Together, these whispers reveal how queens became more than women. They became symbols, miracles, curses, saints, or witches. Reality mattered less than the story. And those stories were always written on their bodies. Rumors may twist a story, but the archives, cold, unfeeling, record a truth even more terrifying. Mumtaz Mahal, 1593-1631. Her death is not legend. It is written in ink. The Padshahnama, the official chronicle, Shah Jahan's court, records that she died in 1631 while giving birth to her 14th child. Eyewitnesses wrote that the emperor was so grief-stricken, he abandoned court for months, dressing in mourning white. The Taj Mahal, often called a monument of love, is, by historical fact, a marble tomb raised over the broken body of a queen consumed by pregnancy. Each tourist, gazing at its dome, forgets it is a grave to the cruelty of childbirth. Maria Theresa of Austria, 1717, the empress, who bore 16 children, left behind not just treaties, but letters, raw, exhausted, confessions. In one she wrote, "Another child is coming, my strength is gone." In another, "I feel more prisoner of my body than ruler of my empire." These words survive in the Habsburg archives of Vienna. Baptismal registers at St. Stephen's Cathedral list her children one by one, each bound into political marriages that redrew Europe's map. 16 births, 16 times she gambled with death. Her letters prove she knew she was not just an empress, but a prisoner of her own womb. Queen Charlotte of Britain, 1744-1818. Physician William Hunter, who attended her, noted her frail frame yet remarkable endurance through 15 confinements. In Windsor's royal archives, letters reveal her private dread. In one to her brother she admitted, "I fear my body will collapse before my duty is fulfilled." Official registers confirm her 15 children. But of those, several died young, reminders that even queens could not protect their offspring from fever or disease. The portraits of a serene matriarch conceal a woman who feared her womb was both her weapon and her curse. Queen Anne of England, 1665-1714. Her tragedy is laid bare in the records of Westminster Abbey and parish registers. 17 pregnancies are listed. Only one child, William, Duke of Gloucester, lived beyond infancy, and he died at 11. The entries read like a funeral march: birth, baptism, burial. Each name crossed out, one after another. Historians call her the mother of 17 coffins. The political consequence was enormous. With no heir, the Stuart line ended, and the throne passed to the Hanoverians. Her personal tragedy reshaped the monarchy itself. Maria Carolina of Naples, 1752-1814. Letters exchanged with her sister Marie Antoinette reveal grief behind diplomacy. After the death of her 10th child, she wrote, "My heart is torn apart, but duty forbids me to weep too long." Official birth records in Naples confirm 17 children, only 7 surviving past childhood. Behind every state banquet and treaty was a woman forced to smile while mourning yet another coffin carried from the palace. Catherine de Medici, 1519–1589. The archives of French physicians preserve the bizarre record of her struggle. Jean Fresnel, her doctor, prescribed strange regimens for infertility, special diets, herbal tonics, even charms. For 10 years, she remained childless. Then, suddenly, 10 births followed, each carefully recorded in baptismal registers. Her children, Francis II, Charles IX, Henry III, and others, would later become kings or queens entangled in France's bloody wars of religion. The leap from barren witch to mother of 10 is documented fact, though it fueled centuries of rumor. Isabella of Castile, 1451–1504. Chronicler Fernando del Pulgar describes her astonishing endurance, commanding troops while pregnant, directing sieges while mourning dead children. Letters exchanged with Ferdinand show sudden shifts, one line issuing war orders, the next lamenting a child's death. Records confirm she bore 7 children, but only 2 lived to adulthood. Her triumphs uniting Spain, sponsoring Columbus are celebrated, but the archives remind us she fought those battles while carrying the weight of constant pregnancies and funerals. Maria Feodorovna of Russia, 1759–1828. The Romanov archives confirm a miracle of common survival. 10 births, 10 survivors. In an age where half of royal children died before adulthood, this was unheard of. Orthodox baptismal records preserve each child's name and date. Count Rostopchin's journal calls her the mother with a womb of steel. Historians still puzzle over her survival. Was it superior care, chance, or something unexplainable? To her contemporaries, it was divine intervention. What do these records tell us? That the legends were not exaggerations. They were, if anything, understatements. The whispers spoke of curses, blessings, witches, and saints. But the documents' baptismal lists, death registers, physicians' notes are colder and crueler. They show women forced to risk their lives again and again, leaving behind trails of ink that trace bloodlines but erase suffering. Mumtaz dead in childbirth, Maria Theresa groaning in exhaustion, Charlotte confessing fear, Anne surrounded by 17 tiny coffins, Carolina writing letters of grief, Catherine enduring potions and whispers of witchcraft, Isabella commanding armies with milk on her lips and tears in her eyes, Feodorovna defying statistics like a miracle. These are not fairy tales. They are written in the official records of nations. And together, they form a darker truth. Dynasties were built not only on crowns and swords, but on the broken bodies of queens. Statistics alone say many of these women should not have survived. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the risk of maternal death was staggering, roughly 1 in 8. Yet some queens endured pregnancies into the double digits. Others buried every child. And their stories left behind mysteries that defy easy explanation. The curse of Queen Anne, 17 pregnancies, 17 funerals. Doctors today suspect autoimmune disease or genetic complications. But her contemporaries saw something darker. Priests preached that God himself had cursed her womb, punishing the stewards for sins of the past. Servants whispered that every cradle carried into her palace was already haunted. And when her dynasty collapsed soon after, it only deepened the belief. Was this coincidence, biology, or the hand of fate closing the Stuart line forever? The phantom Cries of Naples, Maria Carolina of Naples, gave birth 17 times. 10 of her children died. Court servants claimed that after each death, ghostly cries echoed through the nursery long after it was empty. Nurses swore they heard tiny footsteps on the marble at night. To skeptics, these were echoes of grief, the brain conjuring sounds it could not bear to lose. To believers, it was the restless presence of royal infants who never lived to grow. The miracle of Maria Feodorovna. In Russia, the opposite mystery unfolded. Maria Feodorovna gave birth to 10 children, and every single one survived into adulthood. In an era when half of royal children died before age 5, this was nothing short of miraculous. Courtiers called her womb forged of iron. Priests declared it was divine blessing, proof that God smiled upon the Romanovs. But was it chance? Genetics? Or was Maria Feodorovna truly touched by something beyond human understanding? Even now, historians shake their heads. Her survival defies the statistics of her age. The witchcraft of Catherine de Medici. For 10 years, Catherine was childless. She was mocked as barren. Then suddenly, 10 children arrived in succession. How? Physicians of her time prescribed herbs, potions, even charms. Catherine herself consulted astrologers, including the famous Nostradamus. Whispers spread that she had turned to sorcery, that she had bargained with dark forces to open her womb. Was it stress, timing, or a fluke of biology? Or did belief in magic become a self-fulfilling prophecy? To her enemies, she was not a mother but a witch cloaked in royal robes. The omens of Isabella of Castile, carried 7 children while commanding armies and forging a nation. Chroniclers recorded a strange MP rhythm. When she went into labor, wars seemed to halt. Sieges paused. Generals waited. To her followers, this was proof she was chosen by God, her body in sync with the destiny of Spain. To her enemies, her labors were omens of disaster, a cradle rocking empires as well as infants. Was it mere coincidence, or did an entire nation truly move to the rhythm of one woman's contractions? The Taj Mahal's shadow, Mumtaz Mahal's death, still carries an eerie aura. Some accounts claim that Shah Jahan foresaw her death, struck by dread before her final labor. Others said her ghost lingered in the chambers, and that the Taj Mahal itself, majestic, perfect, was haunted by the silence of a woman who never lived to see it built. For tourists, it is romance in stone. For history, it is a monument to a womb consumed. Was her death just tragic biology, or did the empire demand a sacrifice too heavy for one body to bear? The endurance of Maria Theresa. 16 children, yet she ruled an empire. How did she survive? Letters show her despair, yet she lived to 63, far longer than expected. Some claim she was strengthened by divine purpose. Others whispered she had inherited unnatural resilience. Her endurance was itself a phenomenon. How could one woman give birth so many times, govern an empire, and still outlive most of her children? The fear of Queen Charlotte. Charlotte's unexplained legacy was psychological. 15 children broke her body, but what haunted her was the thought of her daughters repeating her fate. She delayed their marriages, keeping them under her watch. Was this maternal protection or an obsession born of trauma? To outsiders, it seemed irrational. To her, it was the only way to fight back against a cycle she could not escape herself. The unexplained phenomena surrounding these queens blur the lines between history and legend. Were Anne's empty cradles a medical tragedy or a curse? Were the cries in Naples echoes of grief or restless spirits? Was Catherine's sudden fertility a medical fluke or a pact with magic? Was Feodorovna's survival a miracle or rare genetics? To their contemporaries, these questions were not academic. They were proof that the womb of a queen was not just flesh, it was destiny. And destiny always carried shadows. Centuries later, the stories of these queens have not faded. They echo in stone, in archives, and even in pop culture. But the way we remember them reveals as much about us as it does about them. Mumtaz Mahal is immortalized in marble. The Taj Mahal is praised as the world's greatest monument of love. Yet few tourists think of the woman inside, dead at 38, her body broken by 14 pregnancies. Her tomb is a wonder of the world, but also a reminder of how a queen's womb was consumed until it collapsed. Maria Theresa of Austria is hailed as a political mastermind, the empress who bound Europe through her children's marriages. But her own words, letters confessing exhaustion and despair, have resurfaced in documentaries and biographies. Today, historians see her not only as a strategist, but also as a woman who turned her body into Europe's greatest diplomatic weapon. Queen Charlotte has been reborn in modern culture. In Netflix's Bridgerton, she is glamorous, witty, and powerful. But behind the romance lies her reality. 15 births, endless grief, and a fear that her daughters would inherit the same suffering. Her cultural resurrection reveals the tension between the myth of royal romance and the truth of maternal sacrifice. Queen Anne has become a symbol of tragedy. Films like The Favourite portray her surrounded by political scheming, yet haunted by the memory of her 17 lost children. Historians now use her story to highlight the brutal medical realities of the 17th century. For many, Anne embodies the hidden cost of monarchy. Her empty cradle became the grave of her dynasty. Maria Carolina of Naples is less remembered in popular culture, yet her letters to Marie Antoinette are studied today as testimony of maternal grief under royal duty. She remains an icon of endurance, a woman who buried more than half her children, yet never surrendered her throne. Catherine de Medici continues to fascinate. She is often portrayed in films and novels as a dark, scheming queen witch. But historians point to the records. 10 children, born after a decade of barrenness. Was she a sorceress, or simply a survivor of relentless pressure? Her image, half ruler, half witch, shows how society punishes powerful women even as it depends on them. Isabella of Castile lives on as the warrior queen who united Spain and sponsored Columbus. But her story as a mother bearing 7 children while waging war is often overlooked. Only recently have scholars highlighted the paradox that a woman remembered for conquest also spent her life mourning tiny coffins. Maria Feodorovna of Russia is celebrated in Russia as the miracle mother of the Romanovs. 10 births, 10 survivors. Her story has become almost mythic, a tale of divine blessing. Even today, Russian historians speak of her as a symbol of resilience, a queen who seemed untouchable by death. Together, these women leave a legacy both inspiring and horrifying. They remind us that royal power was never free. It was built on bodies, on blood, on lives sacrificed in silence. In museums, we see crowns, portraits, and jewels. But hidden in the shadows are scars, empty cradles, and broken mothers. Their legacy forces us to ask, do we remember them as rulers, or as women who suffered because the crown demanded it? Crowns glitter in portraits, thrones shine in museums. But behind those symbols of majesty were women whose bodies paid the real price. Mumtaz Mahal lies under the dome of the Taj Mahal, her name remembered, but her death in childbirth forgotten. Maria Theresa of Austria ruled half of Europe, yet confessed in private that she felt like a prisoner of her own body. Queen Charlotte is painted as serene, yet she wrote of fear, knowing her body might collapse under the weight of duty. Queen Anne buried 17 children, her dynasty buried with them. Maria Carolina endured 10 tiny funerals, her palace haunted by phantom cries. Catherine de Medici was branded a witch when barren, and whispered to have used sorcery when fertile. Isabella of Castile fought wars with armies and pregnancies at the same time. Maria Feodorovna gave birth 10 times without loss, her survival seen as a miracle that defies logic even now. 8 women, 8 wombs, 8 stories written not in ink, but in blood. We celebrate their crowns, but rarely their scars. Their portraits show calm faces, but not the tears shed in silence. Their palaces echoed with music, but also with screams behind locked doors. For centuries, history measured them not by their minds or their courage, but by the number of infants they produced. And yet, it was in those very battles fought in birthing chambers, not on battlefields, that dynasties were made or unmade. So what should we remember? Were they queens or victims? Symbols of power or sacrifices to it? This is the haunting truth. Kings may have built empires with swords, but queens built them with their bodies. And that leaves us with one final question, one that history cannot answer, but you can. If absolute power demanded that you risk your life in childbirth again and again, would you still choose the crown? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Would you trade your freedom, your health, even your life, just to keep a dynasty alive? Or is the price of power too high when it is paid in blood? If this story opened your eyes, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Here on Hidden History Vault, we uncover the past that history books bury, the tragedies, the mysteries, the truths behind the crowns. Because behind every throne, there is always another story.